Hey YouTube, welcome to my channel. I'm Indigo, and this is part 3 of my vlog and the life of Indigo. So I want to talk about like, okay, me and my sister, we was like 11, 12 years old around this time, and you know, like I said, the drug situation was going on. This is a part I wanted to tell you guys that at that time. And I want to say, yeah, about 12, 13. No, 11 and 12. I'm going to say 11 and 12. Okay, because, yeah, I'll tell you what happened when I turned 13. But, and this is how I know I was 13. So when we 11 or 12, me and my sister. So my sister, like I said, she started hanging out with friends, things like that. My mother was still on drugs. There were nights my mother would come home, and I guess I assume she was trying to take drug dealers drugs or something, or beat them out of money or something, because she would come home battered. I'm talking black eyes, busted lips. I'll never forget one night she came home, she knocked on the door, and I looked out the peek hole and I screamed. I'm like, oh my God, like I thought if like I saw a monster because she was so beat up. And I let her in, and I'm like, Mommy, what happened? I'm crying and everything. I'm like, Mommy, what happened? And she just was like, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. She was crying too because I was crying. And she went upstairs and she went to bed. She didn't tell us exactly what happened, but I knew she had been out at a certain lady house who was a devious certain something some of them you know, she wasn't a great person, the lady, for drugs. She would have you cut up in pieces. But where the drugs were, my mother was. And yeah, so I would give my mother, try to put ice in a rag and everything like that to help her, just heal her wounds and stuff like that. It was just crazy. That wasn't the first time, you know. She came home one morning and her face was like that again. And, me and my sister, we're crying and everything. We're like, well, what happened? What happened? And I found out the neighbors across from my mom's house apartment, boyfriend had did that. He was a drug dealer and he had did that. And I hated the whole family for that because that was disgusting. Like, you're a grown man and you're beating on a woman like that, you know. Those were some traumatizing times. But, let me just tell you what was one of the most traumatizing things that happened. Um, this is another time when my mother owed money for drugs. So the next door neighbors that lived across from us, her boyfriend was the one that did that to my mother, beat my mother like that. And so we had, to the right of us, there was people selling drugs out that house, that apartment to the right of us. Yeah, this is all going down on a NYCHA property back in them days, back in the late 80s, early 90s. And so I guess my mother owed the man some money or something. All I know is I came home from out hanging out, I don't know. And let me tell you something. I believe it wasn't nobody but God that was the reason why I came home when I did. Because when I walked in the house, the man had a gun to my mother's head. The man from next door, mind you, my sister and his granddaughter were in the same classroom together. We played next door. You understand what I'm saying? These people smiled at us, gave us candy and everything, and he had a gun to my mother's head. I I don't know. I'm not sure if he saw me or whatever, but I hurry up and ran out of the house. I ran downstairs. Now, in NYCHA, a lot of NYCHA developments, at the time they had NYCHA, housing police. that right under our building in Coney Island, there was NYCHA police. I ran down there and I told them this man had a gun to my mother's head. And they hurry up with me and came, and we was waiting for the elevator. As the elevator opened up, he was bringing my mother out with the gun. He was coming out of the elevator with my mother with the gun to her. And the cops grabbed him right then and there, the gun and everything. And I don't even remember what happened after that. I don't think we went upstairs. We may have had to go to the police station. But that was the first time I saved my mother's life. That was the first time I saved my mother's life. Traumatizing? Oh yeah. So I don't remember if we had a talk about it, or did she say, I don't remember what she said to me. I don't remember. I know we went home, and I don't even I don't recall. Like, a lot of stuff has been blocked out. A lot of stuff. Um so yeah, that was something. And so moving on, uh at the age of, I want to say 12, yeah, I started really, really hanging out with older people, different people, and teenagers. I'm talking probably 15, 16, 17 year olds, stuff like that. I started hanging with my sister and her friends. And and yeah, that that was a different world. It was exciting. A lot of people, partying and things like that. Yeah. And well, let me back up and say, before that, I, well, no, I did start hanging out with them first, and then I found my own little group of friends to hang out with. Now, back in the early '90s, that was a whole different. That's a whole different ball game. It was a whole different ball game. Like, younger girls dated older guys, and for some reason nobody saw anything wrong with it. So here, me and my friends, 13, 12 year olds, 11 year olds, meeting guys with BMWs, meeting guys, you know, with I forgot what the other Acura Legends, and different, you know, um, selling drugs. We met men that had owned their own stores. You know, we're hard partying, hanging out with this. Now I was still a virgin at that time. So yeah, hung out with these guys, things like that, and yeah, But going back to hanging out with my sister, met some guys, and yeah, we dated them, and I met a guy. Let's just call him Mr. K. And so my mother didn't teach us about the birds and the bees, or the sex talk and things like that. So I dated the guy. And one day he was like, come hang out with me and everything. Long story short, um, I became pregnant at 13. So that, like, going back to the other story I was talking about, that's why I know I was 13 at this time, because I became pregnant. Yeah, pregnant at 13. And it's crazy because we were in Red Hood projects at his aunt house when I first um, gave up my virginity. And I thought he liked me so much. I thought he was like the protector, whatever. And ever, I don't know what made it, so easy for me to give it to him. But regardless of what, I got pregnant, and yeah, he ended up. Well, let me just go back and say my mother. When I told my mother, she said she knew. I don't know, but anywho, we ended up at um it- her. She was like, she wanted me to terminate it, my pregnancy because I'm young, 13 years old, and when we went to the place, the doctor was like, it's your body. You don't have to do something you don't want to do. I know your mother's trying to make you do this. And I decided to keep my baby. 13, don't know shit. Hardly going to school because your mother didn't make you go to school at that time. She didn't make you go to school. I went to school at times because I knew it. I'm like, something ain't right here. Something is not right. She's not even making me go to school. And I just went to school because I was like, I'm sitting home. Like, mind you, I'm 12, 13 years old. And I'm like, I'm sitting home not doing anything. Let me go to school. It was crazy. So I just knew it wasn't right. So, anywho, kept my baby. Um, you know, he was born 5 pounds, 12 ounces. Didn't know what I was doing, or whatever the case may be. But uh, baby father locked up. I was 6 months pregnant when he got locked up, and yeah, he was a pos. He was a piece of crap. I mean, young minded, dumb, but he was older than me. He was older than me. I was 13. I want to say he was 19. Um, 17 or 18 or 19. Not sure, but anywho, had my baby. Made lots of mistakes, but tried my best. Did my best to raise him right. Thank God at that time I had my sister. My sister helped me out. You know, she was there more. She helped me out a lot. Uh, I tried to go back to school, things like that, and yeah, my mother was still on drugs. I was still living with my mother. Um, yeah, uh, I remember when my son was 2 years old, I believe 2 years old or three, and she just kept taking the money and just like going and get drugs with it. Now, mind you, this is a welfare case, and my son and I were on her case, so she was the head of the case and got the money. So one day I begged her to come, like, just please, at least buy a box of cereal and a gallon of milk so my son can eat, like, so he can have something to eat because there wasn't nothing in the house. I'm coming back. Don't worry. I'm coming back. I'm gonna give you your part. I'm in the window because you can see the check cash in place from my mother's window. So I'm in the window the whole time. The whole time I'm in the window because I'm like, I saw her go into the check cashing place, and I'm just watching because I'm like, I'm so focused, like praying that she come, to watch her come back home, or at least go in the store to get the cereal and milk. I must have watched so hard. She never came back out that check cashing place. I watched so hard I missed her, or she slid out the back, something, because she never came back home. And now I'm sitting here like, my son didn't eat. You didn't care. Now I have a responsibility. Yeah, I'm only 14 years old at this time, 15, 14, something. But I'm like, you didn't even, I have a responsibility to my child. So you didn't care if my child ate or not. You have a new VCR who one of your boyfriends brought you for $100 at the time. There is a secondhand store next to the train station. So if I pack up my stuff, my son's stuff, Take your VCR to the second hand, got me $50, got my son something to eat, and kept it moving. So I end up going to my grandmother's house. I get a call. You, I know you didn't take my, I know you didn't take my VCR. You stupid so and so, son, bitch, this, that. You know, and I'm just thinking, well, I said to her, you didn't care if my son ate. You didn't even care if my son ate. That means you didn't care if he died or lived. So I don't care about your VCR. You gonna replace my VCR? I said, I'm gonna replace your VCR when you replace my money, the money that you were supposed to give me to feed my son. Plain and simple. Needless to say, she never got that VCR. Because at this point now, my mind, I'm still young, but now I have a mouth to feed, and you're not helping me. Um, so I want to say I stayed with my grandmother for a little while, and I ended up living back with my mother. After that, we reconciled, you know, because she still had the money, she still had money, she still had the case over us, so she was, but this time, um, she would give me a couple of food stamps and everything like that, yeah. So, anywho, um I, continued to hang out and things like that. Ah, 16, pregnant. Ended up meeting a guy, and he, hanging out. See, this is this stuff that happens. You become promiscuous. Not everybody, but wanting attention, wanting to be loved, you know, wanting to be accepted, you know, um, hanging out with girls that were, on the fast lane, I end up becoming pregnant again. Yeah, this time, different man, yeah. His father was in his life, grandmother, things like that, yeah, so um ended up, yeah, trying to do the best I could living at my mother's house. And, again, it wasn't right. Um, at one point, my son's grandmother on his father's side came over and to meet my mother and wanted to talk to my mother about, what can be done, like what can, situation. My mother was ignorant, high, embarrassing. And my second son's grandmother asked me, did I want to give my first son, and which is not her biological grandchild, and my son to her, both of my sons, to raise until I got on my feet. I was like, no, I can't do that. Um, However, I did let her take her grandson. My son was like begging me, please, no, I don't want to go. My oldest son. So I didn't, yeah, I let him stay with me, and I let my second son go stay with his grandmother. So at that point in time, I attempted to get on my feet, started trying to go to school, night school, things like that. I was doing good for a while. And then my mother didn't want to watch my son no more. My sister ended up having her own baby at that time. So yeah, it just got more chaotic. Um, I went down to the public assistance people welfare, and the lady name was Miss Shepherd. I will mention her name because but I spoke with her, and I was telling her like I needed to become emancipated. I'm 16 years old, but I researched, and I don't even know how, but I found out that I could become emancipated, and that's what I wanted to do. And I told them, like, you know, my children are not being, and fed. My son is not, my mother's not doing the right thing. She's on drugs, blah blah blah. And they gave me my own case at 16 years old, and I was able to feed my son, you know, and things. My mother was mad, of course. She was upset, you know. I'm taking money away from her drugs. She didn't care. That's what she was really concerned about. I didn't care. So, yeah, that's how things were going. Um, Crazy thing, the lady next door, the ones that was opposite from my mother, the one that her boyfriend beat my mother up, offered me. She had a son, my oldest son in age. She offered me clothing and things like that, and I took it because I needed it. So I took it and things. So that was nice. Having some extra clothing for my child and everything like that. So that helped out a lot. Um, uh, yeah. So that's how that started. That was going, and I started really having you know, resentment for my mother. That's when the resentment really started, because it's like, like, what are you gonna do? I remember asking her, like, could you please, like, get clean, and for your grandkids at least. And she was like, I'm gonna get clean. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do this for my grandkids because I'm tired. Now, mind you, my mother, I don't know what happened, like with the transition of the drugs she was taking. She started like being really scary. Like she would not at first and like when she would get high at my apartment. I mean, well, at our apartment. It would be when she's at other friends' house, and she would come home and say like things was chasing her, demons was chasing her. Like it would started messing with her mind mentally. So now I'm scared, and I have a child to think about. I brought a lock for the door, like, because if this lady come in here and she's my mother and I love her, but I'm gonna have to take her out because I'm like, you're not gonna take me and my son out. You're getting, you coming in here talking about paranoia and all. Like it was bad. So like I said, that was some of the times, and you know, I still didn't learn my lesson though. Um, I still because my sister, she would watch my oldest son. Like I said, my second son was with his grandmother on and father, so I really had no responsibilities as much you know as I should have. So I still was hanging out. um Ended up meeting a guy when I was hanging out back with my friends. um there was a bunch of guys that would hang together, and then there was us girls that would hang together, stuff like that. And met them. At first, one of the friends, he wanted to date me. He liked me, but I didn't like him. He smelled like all types of beer. Like he was drinking beer day and night, and it was just coming out of his clothes, his paws, his mouth, everything. It was just so ugh. But anywho, I liked the quiet one. I liked him, and he liked me too, but he was so quiet, whatever the case may be. Um, and he was also supposed to be talking to a different girl. They brought me over there for the one that smelled like beer, and that wasn't happening. Anywho, a couple of weeks later, um, we're all hanging out, and I was telling his friends that I liked him. I liked the quiet one, whatever the case may be, and yeah, and so we talked a little bit, but nothing serious. Then I didn't see him for months. I disappeared. Um, Started hanging out, the other places and things, and later on down the line, a couple of months, me and my friend, the same friend I met him with, run into him and his friends. It was nighttime, so they didn't even know it was us. They thought we was different girls. So the guy that I like, he's waving us over, like, come here. And then he realized it was us. I said, yeah, you didn't even know it was us. And anywho, he followed us into the building, and then because my friend, she had to drop off something or other to someone, and I was holding the elevator, and he was like, so how would you like, would you go out with me if I was to ask you out? And I said, this is my exact words. I said, yeah, but you ain't getting no, you know, basically saying like, yeah, when I, and he was like, oh, like, da, da, da. But anyway, that guy, we didn't see each other for a while after that either. I went on, I don't know. But then one day I was on the phone, on a payphone, and I was talking to my grandmother, and I saw him. I said, Grandma, I'm going to call you back. And so, because I liked him. I liked, he was quiet and everything. And, I thought he was a good guy because he had both of his parents, middle class, and he was like on the quiet side. He didn't strike me as someone that hung out, was hanging out and just, rowdy, raunchy, dirty, you know. He didn't strike me as that person. So I thought he was a good guy. And we ended up dating and everything like that. From the first night, um we saw each other that night, we were together every day since, and stuff like, so um yeah, so we was together for a while. And he would come up to my mother's house. I want to make sure, you know he would come to my mother's house, and you know see me and everything like that, my son and stuff like that. We would go out to eat. He didn't even eat seafood. He was eating seafood because of me. And I didn't know at the time, like, if he was allergic, that could have been a problem. Anywho, so it was one time I found out that he was, I believe, I found out he was seeing someone else, and I broke up with him. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not with that. Da, da, da. So, I'm not with that. So, um, yeah, we had broke up. Mind you, I'm in my mother's house and everything like that, whatever. But okay, my mother had started. She went to stay with my grandmother for a couple of weeks for something, I don't know, something or other. So me and the dude I broke up with because he was seeing someone else, end up seeing each other again because we all hung in the same circle. So, and ended up dating again. And he would come and see me in my mother's house. I would put my son in the other room and stuff like that. We would engage, whatever. Okay. And yeah. So long story not it's not even, no, it can't be a long story short one, but um we got into an altercation. I was, over, I don't even know, I forgot what it was over, but I ended up stabbing him. And you know he was furious. Yeah, I was scared. I was scared at that point too, because I'm like, oh, he's about to take my head off, like, whatever the case may be. And I ran to my neighbor's house, but he followed me. I tried to sneak to my neighbor's house, and then he called the cops. The cops knocked on the door. I got arrested and everything, and come to find out that, yeah, a couple of inches more. This, you know, this would be a whole different story, but thank God it's not. Thank God he lived. And because he hit me. Matter of fact, that's what happened. He had hit me and he bit me. Yeah. You know. Now, red flags, yeah. But I saw my mother get abused physically, and go back over and over and over again. And I just thought, you work through stuff. And me and him, after I got out, I was locked up for like a weekend, Rikers Island. And he met me at the elevator when I got home, so we hugged and everything. It was, and he could have easily took me out, whatever. But you know, anyway, yeah. we reconciled and was together again, long time, um so um so this is going to conclude my part. What is this? This is going to conclude this vlog. Um, I hope you guys join me on part 4 of my vlog. Um, I guess I'm gonna call it a day in the life. No, my life story. My life story. Um, till next time. Till next time, guys. Bye, YouTube.